Very good Tuesday to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to today's European Outlook. It is the 14th of October, and I wanted to start off. There's actually more going on than what many would probably think. Yes, we're stuck beneath anticyclonic gloom, and that is a term that has been, seemed to be more thrown out around about this time last year, but it's back. It's this time of the year when you've got these strong areas of blocking high pressure. We've got that cloud and moisture trapped beneath that subsidence, and therefore you've got this day after day of gloom. But then get yourself, perhaps anywhere from 5 to as much as 1,000 feet above the lowest portions of the atmosphere, and you're in the sunshine. You've got the crystal clear skies, and you're looking down over the blanket of cloud that has drowned out the valleys and the glens, and chilly air trapped beneath that as well. But we'll look at that in a little bit more detail in just a second, because there's some interesting things to show in today's video. But upwards of nearly 300 millimeters of rain fell from the 11th of October. This is a tweet here by Nick's Weather Eye showing that 297 millimeters of rain fell in the Santa Barbara area of northeastern Spain, just within the Catalonia area. And this is the river Ebro Delta. We've seen, this ongoing situation where you've got the high over the UK, you've got the feature here that is embedded within the atmosphere over eastern Iberia. We've had this, this recurrent thunderstorm development situation. You've got the warm waters, water temperatures 23 Celsius along the shores of the east coast of Spain. You've got the mountains and just inland. You've got the orographic influence as well as warm waters, and then the atmosphere to play into the equation as well. Now, it was the end of October last year that we had that catastrophic flooding within the Valencia area, and they're getting it again. Upwards of 60 millimeters falling within a single hour. And what's significant about this here is this was tweeted out by Daniel at London and South East Weather yesterday, showing that as much rain has fallen in the eastern side of Spain in recent days, just days, than all of London has seen throughout 2025. So, as Daniel says, warm Mediterranean Sea, a big contributing factor with the intensity of the rainfall. Amber warnings were actually red warnings over the course of the weekend. So quite an interesting situation, really, when you think about that. And this is a 72-hour rainfall, according to Meteoseal. Very little in the way of rainfall away from this region, stretching from up towards Benidorm, towards the Barcelona area. There's that 197 in the last 3 days in Tortosa. Current temperatures are 26 Celsius, by the way, so still fairly warm. If we zoom out then, and this is rainfall totals last 72 hours, and not an awful lot across the majority of Europe, it has to be said here. We've got some wet weather up across Scandinavia here. Winds coming around the top of that area of high pressure, driving moisture into the upslopes of western Norway, for example. But it's this ongoing blow up of thunderstorms in the east central region of Spain. Let's not forget the Balearics as well, seeing some flash flooding in Majorca, Ibiza over recent days as well. So the situation across the British Isles, we've got this in terms of the visible satellite imagery. So very, very gloomy conditions across the vast majority of the UK as well as Ireland. Not an awful lot of sunshine to be had at all across Ireland, possibly near zero, in fact. You notice here there's a few breaks. Southwestern England, southern and southwestern Wales, northwestern England. So, for example, the Cumbrian Fells, parts of the Cumbrian Fells. Then you've got up into the Central Highland region, where you've got essentially the cloud base is beneath these mid to high mountain areas of the UK, whether it be northwest England or central Scotland. So this is the view from the top over Glencoe, and absolutely stunning scenes. Not a cloud to be had. You know, you're talking about pressure widely at around 1,033, 34 millibars. We've actually got the opposite pressure pattern to around this time last week, or, you know, say back over the course of the weekend, where we had that deep area of low pressure passing to the north of the UK, pressure down to 944 millibars over Shetland, for example, new October record. We had a strong area of high pressure over eastern areas of Europe, and a big gradient. We've flipped that on its head, and now we've got the lowest heights over Western Russia. We've got some pretty chilly air, and look at this here. You can see that area of high pressure that has been just, like a stone, just sitting there, not going anywhere. And what that's doing is it is creating quite a significant temperature inversion. So underneath that cloud cover, by night the temperatures are held up, but by daytime the temperatures are suppressed, where you don't have an awful lot of sunshine. The reasons why this layer of cloud and moisture doesn't dissipate through the course of the day is the sun is becoming weaker day by day, and therefore it doesn't have as much energy to then burn that cloud and fog, etc., away, and it just becomes stuck. And essentially this is the scene that you see quite widely across northwest England and the Highland region of Scotland. Same view at the Cairngorm. If we just wait for this image to refresh, you can see here that we've got the clear skies on the top of Cairngorm, and then underneath you've got that big blanket. So Aviemore and all areas down in the valley areas are trapped underneath that blanket of cloud. But we're seeing some interesting temperatures as well. If we skip back, these are the current temperatures at 15 UTC today, and you've got 11 Celsius at 933 meters meters above sea level. So you're talking 11.3 in the sunshine on top of Cairngorm. You're talking about 9 Celsius at Aviemore. What's quite interesting here is if you look at the 850 temperatures of the model, you can see here, this is the current pressure situation, rain and snow underneath that area of low pressure over Western Europe. Still talking about a 1033 high, like I say, over the UK. Let's put on the 850s then, and you can see that we've got the 10 Celsius at 850 underneath the core of the high. There's that cold air associated with the trough over eastern areas of Europe. So ridge in the west, trough in the east, and conflicting air masses. So essentially at 5,000 feet above our heads, we've got a temperature at around 10 Celsius. Now this is proved when you look back at temperatures earlier this morning. You can see here that the temperature dropped to around 4 Celsius at Aviemore, while at on Cairnwell, now obviously the 850 doesn't have the same fluctuation in temperature within that mid-level of the atmosphere as opposed to down at the surface where you get the diurnal fluctuation in temperature. So 4 Celsius at Aviemore, 13 Celsius at Cairnwell, and the same goes for nearby Cairngorm. So you can see that the cold air trapped in the low levels, and some fairly warm air in the tops of the Scottish Highlands, for example. Quite interesting stuff. Now, if we look at the dew points, we're talking about very, very low dew points indeed. And these are the currents. So you're talking about 0 Celsius dew point, and you've got a 45% humidity level. Now, we'll look at the humidity level in just a second, but if we skip back, you can see here the dew point down as low as minus 14 this morning. Dew point of 4 at Aviemore. This is at 8:50 this morning. And minus 14, very, very low dew point at this point this morning. And again, where you've got the very clear, dry air, you've got the low humidity, low dew point, and then underneath that blanket, you've got saturation, you've got fog, you've got mist, you've got 100% humidity, and you've got these big swings between the humidity level, dew point, depending on what elevation you're at. So this was as we played through. Now I wanted to draw your attention to this here. This is Kernwell here, 41% versus 83%, 92%. Quite a few places 100%, which would mean that they're trapped beneath a foggy environment. Now, if we play through, you can see here that the dew point, by the time we reached what this was, let's skip through to yesterday. Obviously, the dew point comes up during the overnight period, and then it drops during the daytime when the sun gets going. But we had essentially a dew point down to about 19 at Kernwell, where we had a 99% dew point at our humidity level, at Aviemore. So these are pretty impressive fluctuations, which isn't overly uncommon. Now, I want to show you another thing here, which is quite interesting. 850 temperatures, you are talking about the 850s over... Sorry. Aren't. Is it going to play in my favour here? Skip. So, these are the 850 temperatures of the GFS for Manchester. You're talking about the 11 Celsius at 850 over Manchester. We do have a downward trend, if you notice, to below average as we head towards the back half of this month. But again, air temperatures lower than what they are up at the 850 millibar level. The same goes for Inverness. You're talking about around about 10 Celsius at 850 millibars. Now, the temperature is probably close to that 850 level, but what we are going to see is, yet again, during the overnight period, the warmest temperatures over the mountaintops and cooling. Where you get the clear skies, light winds at night, we will see frost and lower temperatures, but that blanket of cloud is keeping the temperatures up during the overnight period. Now, this is Cairngorm, and this was back on the 12th, which was 2 days ago, and we had an air temperature of 12.1 Celsius. And bear in mind, this is over 4,000 feet above sea level. And the dew point, or humidity percentage, was 8%. Now, according to Met Office meteorologist and presenter Aidan McGivern, when he talked about the week ahead forecast on the broadcast yesterday, he said that there was a dew point somewhere within the Pennines of 4%. And when I did a Google search, according to AI overview anyway, the lowest humidity ever recorded in the UK was 6% in 1984 at a weather station in Glasgow. Great Dunfell in the Pennines. Now, it may have been around I'm waiting to hear a couple of replies, but it may have been actually a Great Dunfell a couple of days ago, probably back on Saturday or Sunday. The dew point, he said, was down to 4%. So that means that we could be talking about some of the lowest humidities ever recorded in the UK with this type of air mass. Like I say, much more higher humidity in the low levels. You've got that inversion, that cap, and then above that you've got exceptionally dry, clear air. And even though temperatures during the overnight underneath the clear skies, you're seeing the temperatures holding up at 12 or 13 Celsius versus mid to low single figures underneath that. So I just wanted to talk about this a little bit more because I find it quite interesting in terms of this kind of capping situation that we've got going at the moment. And this is reasonably common at this time of the year, October, November, even in December. When you've got high pressure, you can have warmth in the mid-levels. You've got actually colder conditions trapped underneath. You've got that day after day of cloudy conditions. It looks as if Iberia is looking a lot better than it has been in recent days. This is the current visible satellite imagery showing just some patchy stratus cloud across many areas of Spain and Portugal, but they still got some clouds, perhaps some shower activity over parts of. We may have a little bit of a blow up of convection over Majorca, for example, but that northeast corner of Iberia, perhaps still seeing some weather, but the vast majority of the Iberian Peninsula is looking a lot better than it has been over the past few days. And then current temperatures across the continent is looking like this. So there's the chillier over Western Russia underneath that trough. Milder conditions. France got temperatures as warm as 23, 24, 25 Celsius. Not too bad for this time of the year. And you're still talking about 30 Celsius in parts of south central Spain. So if we zoom in to Iberia, you can see here that we are seeing a bit of a recovery in temperatures here, 25, 26 Celsius. I've got a colleague down in this part of the world at the moment here, so he will be happy to see more in the way of sunshine. But yeah, we're talking about 32 Celsius along the Spanish-Portuguese coast. So pretty decent warmth for middle October. Finally, let's have a quick look then and see the overview of the GFS. We are going to see that high eventually as we progress through towards the end of the week and through the weekend. We are going to see that high shifting east. We've got weather that is going to gather across the Atlantic, and eventually we should start to see a bit of a breakdown. There's the high there slipping into Germany. We've got the areas of low pressure then starting to approach from the west. Looks as if by Sunday we're going to see, according to the GFS run anyway, a bit of a breakdown developing here. Area of low pressure moving in and bringing some very different conditions to what we're seeing at this moment in time. And then we may start to see this kind of chain of lows sweeping in as we progress through the course of next week here. I do still think higher pressure building towards Greenland as these areas of low pressure, perhaps further south tracking, will then allow and pull some of that colder conditions from the north into the UK pattern. So we'll play through the ECMWF. There's that slight undercut I'm talking about here. Area of high pressure between Iceland and Norway. Area of low pressure, not too shabby, 985 millibars, wet and windy conditions here. If we put on the 850s here, you do have colder air to the north as that area of low pressure perhaps pulls eastwards. We may see something colder coming in, but nothing particularly cold. That's an interesting run, isn't it? That's actually quite a warm surge coming up through Iberia, France, and into the southeast UK, all the way out to Monday the 27th. So, yeah, we'll look at the medium range in the next couple of days. So stay tuned and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen here. If you have, hit that like button, leave a comment, and most importantly, hit that subscribe button as well. I would greatly appreciate that. Have a great one. Bye-bye.